have been doing. What you did last year was critical because the votes that you provided last year helped us elect Nikki Fried.
Yes.
All right? Without your votes, we would not
Yes.
have a Commissioner of Agriculture. She won by 7,000 votes. All right, so it was critical that votes were turned out everywhere, and your votes counted and contributed to that. So thanks to you, we have our first constitutional officer since 2006.
Holy
As the last time we had a constitutional officer elected in the state of Florida, it was Alex Sink, for those who are around. So that's number one. We also did a number of other things I will talk about in just a few minutes, but I want to thank you for that wonderful walk, and congratulations to you, Tracy, and all the work that you and your volunteers are doing, because it's critical. Phil, and your first name?
Earl.
It's one to thank both of you for running. Having candidates run everywhere is really critical, because we know when Democrats run, more Democrats vote. When Democrats vote, Democrats win. And so that is what we do. It's very important to do that. And back into the military on this, I was raised as a Navy brat, and my husband is a Purple Heart Vietnam vet. The Republicans have nothing on us when it comes to military service, and we need all of you who are involved in the military and support the military. It's important to get that word out because it's critical. We cannot let them take that away from us as a value. Democrats are patriotic and are military veterans and support the military. It is critical to do that. And we know what this president has done. That we know, and I want to go back and say this, I've said this a million times and you've heard this, this election is the most important election of our lifetime. Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, I heard Alcee Hastings, Congressman Alcee Hastings, who's one of our congresspeople in Palm Beach County in South Florida, the other day, and he was talking, he says, it's not just the most important election of our lifetime, it's the most important election since 1864. Think about that. All right, think about that. 1864 was a crossroads in American history. We could have split as a country or stayed together, right? And because there was so much at stake and so much crucial was going on. And he says that's where we are now. It is absolutely critical that we get out our vote. We must win next year, not just for us, and we know it's critical for us in the state of Florida, but not just for the country, for the world, for everybody. It is critical that we get rid of who in the White House, that we get rid of Gates, Matt Gates. He's got to go. Gates got to go. And we elect Democrats up and down the ballot. And it is absolutely critical that we get out there and do that. So that is why what you all do here is so critical. And when I see the enthusiasm and energy in this room, it's just fantastic. Blue is in the air, you know that, right? So we saw that in the election last week when we saw the people in Pennsylvania, the people in Kentucky, even the people in Mississippi. We lost in Mississippi, but the gap narrowed because people are seeing what this president is doing and what the Republicans are doing. So blue is in the air, and it's on us to capitalize. It's on us to get out every vote. You are 100,000% right. Every county matters. The 67 county strategy is critical. We need to get our votes out everywhere. There are Democrats here. Look at all of you. There are Democrats all over the Panhandle. There are Democrats in Central Florida. There are lots of Democrats in South Florida. So we need to close that margin, let the big counties run it up, and get our people out and vote and win everywhere. So turnout is absolutely critical. The 67 county strategy, which is something that we started and we're concentrating on last year, and that was one of the things that helped us get the wins we had. I want to quickly go over what it was we did last year in 2018, because sometimes people forget. Do you know that we actually had record turnout in every county? Every county beat their turnout from 2016 in last year. They beat their turnout from 2014. Record turnout. We had more than 1 million Democrats vote last year in 2018 than voted in 2014, which was the last comparable election, a gubernatorial election. We actually had 89% of the vote that we had in 2016, which was a presidential year. I mean, that's really remarkable. We got Nikki Fried elected statewide. We picked up 2 congressional seats in Miami, Debbie Mercarso-Powell and Donna Shalala, who added to that congressional total of 40 that took over Congress and are producing those results that we see daily going on right now. That is really critical. We picked up 3 big county commissions in Miami-Dade, in Hillsborough, and in Orange. So along with Palm Beach, which is my county, and Broward, we have the 5 biggest counties in the state under Democratic majority control. And picked up seats up and down the ballot everywhere. It's what's critical. So we saw wins, and of course we passed Amendment 4. Now that's still under contention, but it's going to happen. It is happening. And there are people who are going to vote this year because of the turnout that you all got out last year and contributed to that win last year. So all of that was really critical in what we did. But we didn't quite make it to the mountaintop when it came to Bill Nelson and Andrew Gillum. You know, we came this close. We are now not just a 1% state. We are not a 0.5% state. We're a 0.25% state, you know, in terms of turnout. And our goal this year is to build off what we did last year that worked and got us to where we were, and then take us up over the top by adding to it. So I want to tell you a little bit about what's going on in the party, some of which Tracy's already talked to you about, some of the things, but and ask you to give me some of your ideas as we go forward. First of all, what worked last year? What do you think? Yeah, knocking on doors, making phone calls, you know, doing all the things, getting out the vote. All the volunteers like you all, that was absolutely critical because we had tremendous enthusiasm and tremendous turnout. All right, looking at, in terms of programming, vote by mail. Vote by mail works. All right, how many of you vote by mail? Look at this, absolutely critical. We actually beat the Republicans for the first time ever in vote by mail. Now that is really critical. All right, because everybody knows why vote by mail is good for all kinds of reasons. But number one, you can chase the people who haven't returned their ballots, which is why, you know, so you know when people have voted and you know who hasn't voted, you know, on those, and you can get out there and chase them. We know that, and you may have heard my little spiel on this before, or one of our spiels on this. But when you get a vote by mail in your hands, people who get a vote by mail are more than 90% likely to turn out and vote. The average turnout is in the 50s. So that's a massive increase. It's a tremendous increase in terms of turnout. And so the more people who get a vote by mail in their hands, who don't necessarily have to vote by mail, you know. I mean, you can mail it in if you like, but it's also, you could actually turn it in and vote at the polls, you know, so either on early voting or on election day. But it's a visual reminder that there's an election coming up. You get it 30 days in advance, there's a visual reminder it's coming up. You can take the time to research the issues, you can, you know, really put some thought into it, and then get it back in, and then you don't get called by people who are out there phone banking, you know, chasing votes. So that's really critical. Vote by mail works, so that's something that enabled us to actually get out approximately a little under 1 million people who could have voted in 2014 but didn't, and actually voted in 2018. So that's how we got some of the wins that we got last year, was because of vote by mail. That worked. 67 county strategy and having lots of good Democratic candidates running everywhere. That worked too. You know, so we're building on that and trying to, you know, to increase. What are we adding to this? Increased emphasis on voter registration. The last time the party, as a party, registered, put a lot of emphasis on voter registration, actually was under Obama. You know, Obama ran it before in 2012. That doesn't mean people weren't registering to vote. We weren't doing it, but there was not a big push and a big by the party itself to actually register. We can register people partisanly. We can wear our Democratic T-shirts or not, but we can. Yes, sure. We're a partisan organization. You know, so we can register partisanly. You know, so when you're at a booth that says Democratic Party registering, you know, you can talk to people about your democratic values. Now, you register other people if they want to. You know, you register. You know, Republicans or NPAs can register also. You don't turn anybody away. But the goal is to register more Democrats. And our goal, we know that we've lost our edge, our turnout, you know, in terms of margin, overall registered voters, it's shrinking, or has been shrinking for the past numbers of years. So our goal is to rebuild our base again, and do that by voter registration. So our commitment as the Florida Democratic Party is to register, and Tracy mentioned this, 200,000 voters, Democrats, by this time, by the primary next year, by the primary. That increases our base overall in the state, but also it's also strategic because we're also giving higher targets and more emphasis in areas where there are swing districts, or areas where building a little bit of cushion will elect more Democrats. Debbie Mercarso-Powell's district is an example of this in Miami. She just barely won, if those of you are familiar with politics in Florida. Debbie Mercarso-Powell is in Miami district, and she won by just about, I think, about under 50,000 votes last year. And so they're going to come after her. We are going to increase by adding Democratic voters to that base to give her a little bit more of a cushion, you know, as she goes into the selection. Now that also coincides with a state Senate District 39, which is a target area down in Miami, and a House district. So by adding voters in that area, we're adding voters to a lot of seats, and that as well as our overall margin. So that's the kind of thing that we're doing statewide. Our goal is to get 200,000 Democrats added to the rolls next year. So that's number one. Voter registration is key. And we think that will help us a great deal. So party's put in a lot of resources into this. We have invested and will have invested about $2.5 million into voter registration efforts. The grants to the counties are one of the ways. Hiring organizers in these communities is another. For example, we hired, how many of you have heard of Organizing Corps? No? Okay, Organizing Corps, some of you have if you've been involved with, and attended the convention or have heard some of our presentations. Organizing Corps is a way to build our own local organizing base with people from the state of Florida who will then be able to work as organizers in the campaign. Organizing Corps was a partnership with the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, with 7 battleground states. It was Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Arizona, Georgia, us, and I think I missed one. But there are 7 battleground states who contributed to this, along with the DNC. We raised our portion of it. The DNC got matching funds from other organizations, and we hired college students this past summer in June, who were trained, hit the streets in July and August as organizers, predominantly in those kind of districts I talked about before, in the big urban areas where we had underrepresented, underregistered people. Predominantly in this case, Miami-Dade, Broward, Orange, and Hillsborough, but there were other counties as well. We had 90 of the 300 organizers, 90 of them in the state of Florida. They spent their time learning organization, registering people to vote, and then this past August, at the end of August, went back to college and are now on their college campuses, one of whom is the one you're talking about right here, locally, who is going to be working on the college campus over the year, organizing, registering people to vote. And all 90 of them are going to graduate in May, right about the time the presidential campaigns are going to be hiring organizers. So we have homegrown talent who are organizers ready to go, so that we won't have helicoptered in from Michigan and telling you what to do here, right? That's one of the things that we're doing through the FDP is developing our own organizing. We also have paid boots on the ground, paid organizers. There's numbers of programs for voter registration. The key is registering people to vote. We also are focusing on another key program that we've done this year because we saw the need is voter protection. All right? You all saw the mess that happened around the recount last year, right? We all know that the Republicans are trying to suppress the vote every day of the year in any number of ways, big and small. So we were the first state party, and I'm really proud of this, we were the first state party in the country to develop a voter protection program. So what does that mean? We hired a full-time voter protection director, Brandon Peters. Many of you know Brandon Peters, who came on board in April of this past year, putting together legal teams in the counties around the state, who are already at work in many of the counties, with supervisors of elections, working to get prepared for possible recounts or possible any issues related to Election Day. We have established a full-time voter hotline, which is for the first time ever this far out. Usually those voter hotlines come in about August of the election year, right before an election, right before a primary. Well, ours went up this past summer, and it's available for anybody who has a voter issue. For example, and the number one kinds of calls are about Amendment 4. Amendment 4 voters who are calling to find out about how do they register to vote. So our teams are contacting them back and working with them. There's also issues about where do I vote. In a number of counties, there have been a number of issues related to the cleansing of the rolls, where people have gotten knocked off the rolls or gotten notices that they're in jeopardy of being knocked off the rolls. So we're working with those supervisors of elections and trying to clear up these issues now. 2 local issues that have turned out that are kind of interesting. One is in Orange County, the librarians in Orange County, or the libraries I should say, wanted to establish the voting distance, the electioneering distance at 200 feet from the polls. Well, the law that was just passed is bad enough. It calls for 150 feet. All right, but they wanted to make it farther out, which means in parking lots in many places, you know, which makes it difficult. So our voter protection team worked with them and sorted it out and said, no, the law calls for 150 feet. That's where it needs to be, and that's what it's going to be. It's going to be 150 feet because we found out now, however, not next year when it comes time to election day. You know, so it's now cleared up. Another issue had to do in a local area in one of the counties, and I won't identify which one, was preventing students with backpacks from going into polling locations. Safety issue, but you know, but that's a voter suppression thing. You know, I mean, inadvertent, but it is. I mean, student shows up at the poll with a backpack, not allowed to go in with the backpack. What do they do? Turn around and go home, probably. You know, in many cases. So what we again worked it out with the supervisors' elections, and that is now no longer going to be an issue. So doing it now, having the voter protection team up and running now, dealing with issues now rather than next year. And this hotline is really critical, and I want everybody to remember this. But if you forget it, you can go to our website and find out. You know, but it's 1-833-VOTE-FLA. So 1-833-VOTE-FLA. So in numerical numbers, that's 1-833-868-3352. All right, so go to make sure that you have that on you, you know, so that anytime there's an issue, you know, you can refer to that, and that's our voter hotline that we have. So we were the first state party in the country to have that, and now 4 other states have followed our model in terms of developing a voter protection program and team. So these are the kinds of things that we're doing through the FDP. Funding, we're going to continue to double down on vote by mail, because that works. We're adding voter registration, voting protection, and then what we call the Municipal Victory Program to help build the bench and train people to run for office and work on campaigns. And that was something that was just rolled out a month and a half ago. The first teams were trained actually up here. Did anybody here attend that? That was Lisa Peck in her program here. Well, there were over 90 people who attended that here. We've subsequently done one in Jacksonville. There were over 40 people at that one, even though it was raining cats and dogs. People still showed up and did it. And the third one is going to be in Tampa this week. So this is the kind of thing that we're doing with the FDP to build now and work toward winning next year, because we know how critical every vote is. And we know that your turnout here is absolutely essential. So everything that you're doing, everything that you do that helps us statewide and locally is really critical. So I want to thank you and remind you that you have a canvas on the 16th, is that correct?
Yeah.
And you're being out there and knocking on doors and touching the voters, reminding them about democratic values, reminding them what Matt Gaetz has not done, you know, and what he has done, talking about Donald Trump and his issues, and finding out issues related to the voters are critical, because every vote matters and what you do matters. Remember, we want to lose by less in areas where it's difficult. We want to win the swing counties where the swings exist, and we want to run it up and rack it up in the big blues by all of the programs that we're talking about. And this year, we want to be on the other side of those margins. Now, I want to just close by reminding everybody of how close it is. Some of you have heard this before. Steve Shale, I think a lot of you know who he is. How many of you who know who Steve Shale is? He ran the Obama 2008 campaign. He was the campaign manager for Obama 2008. Major consultant in 2012, and has been a political consultant and analyst, and a very, very well-known analyst, and is often quoted. You'll often see his quotes in the newspaper and so on. His name is Steve Shale. He's analyzed lots of elections. For the last 6 presidential elections, count them back, 6 presidential elections, a total of 51 million votes cumulatively, all parties have been cast. So 51 million votes cumulatively in 6 elections. The cumulative difference, cumulatively, in all 16 elections is 19,000 votes.
Whoa.
Isn't that incredible? 19,000 votes out of 51 million votes has determined who our presidential winner in the state of Florida has been. This year, we want to be on the upside of that. We want to be at least 20,000 ahead, in terms of the margin. So every little thing it's amazing when you think about that. I mean, it's mind-blowing, as to, who won or who lost in the state of Florida. We want our 29 electoral votes to go to the presidential nominee who is a Democrat, right?
Yes.
Not a Republican, a Democrat. Right. We want to get rid of Trump. We want to get rid of Matt Gaetz. We want to elect Democrats up and down the ballot. So I'm going to ask you to renew your vows. Please put your hand up. Okay. All right. Please renew your vows. I am a proud Democrat.
I am a proud Democrat.
I will work to elect all Democratic candidates.
I will work to elect all Democratic candidates.
I will work my fingers to the bone.
I will work my fingers to the bone.
Our country is facing great challenges.
Our country is facing great
And
challenges.
our values are being tested like never before.
Our values are being tested like never
But if we
before.
work together.
But if we work together.
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 We'll win.
We will